I'm Adam and this is Reel Rivalries, the show where we pit two movies head to head and let you decide the winner. Today we take a trip back to the 80s as Wonder Woman 1984 goes up against X-Men Apocalypse. The rounds include characters, story, powers, and assembly. So grab yourself an ecto cooler, pull up a chair, and let's talk characters. Apocalypse has quite the collection of mutants. Jennifer Lawrence is for some reason the main character as Raven. Once in a blue moon, she graces us with her presence as Mystique. Beast is back, along with Havoc, briefly before he accidentally kills himself while throwing a fit. He died a hero. Not really, it was actually pathetic. His brother Scott should feel embarrassed about the whole ordeal. Put a lot of people's lives in jeopardy. Ready Player One has the hots for Sophie Turner, who plays Jean Grey. The teen versions do nothing for me, and the same can be said for Storm, Nightcrawler, and another version of Angel. Who is asking for this character to keep showing up? Quicksilver remains awesome at least, even if he did get burdened with the terrible Magneto dad subplot that goes absolutely nowhere. Logan shows up for a brief cameo, and Moira is back from X-Men First Class to just kind of be in scenes. Just kind of there. Brings zero skill sets to the team, but they keep bringing her along. Professor Xavier and Magneto continue their on-again, off-again relationship as well. The villain of the picture has gone by many names over his life. The first one, Shen, Ra, Trevor probably, but he'll always be known as Apocalypse to me. Oscar Isaac plays the Blue Mutant in a somewhat nonchalant way. He's a pretty chill dude who likes to surround himself with some close friends. And by close, I mean in the literal sense, as he pretty much picks out the first four mutants he comes into contact with. One such mutant is Olivia Munn's character Psylocke. I think the fireworks in Wonder Woman 1984 had more time on screen than she did. Speaking of Wonder Woman 1984, let's see who lights up the film in this picture. Gal Gadot is back as Princess Diana, along with her co-star Chris Pine. But wait, Adam, I thought Steve Trevor died in the first film, selflessly giving his life for those around him. That's correct, a stranger on the internet. He did in fact die. But this time he's been selfishly brought back so that a 70-year-old budding romance can continue to flourish. Kristen Wiig basically plays Selena Kyle from Batman Returns. She becomes a Catwoman of sorts too, a cheetah girl. The Mandalorian takes his mask off to play the main villain here, Maxwell Lord. He's a self-described loser who will find a way to cheat the system and work his way up to the presidency by the end of the film. Definitely not inspired by any real-life figures. Some of the Amazonian favorites show up for a 10-minute lesson about why it's wrong to cut corners, and there are a number of children who pop up here and there for Wonder Woman to painfully save. One kid gets crushed into a horse, and two others are completely wrecked after she topples over them. Broken-boned kids aside, X-Men just has a more diverse roster here, plus no one's masquerading around in someone else's body in order to go on dates. I mean, Apocalypse kinda does that in a way, but he is also, the villain. Considering I didn't like Wonder Woman in her own movie this time, X-Men gets the win here. X-Men Days of Future Past fixed a ton of the issues with the X3 storyline, mainly by removing it. This allowed the writers to take the series in a fun new direction with the original cast and some fresh concepts. They instead opted to tell the same stories with a new fresh-faced cast. Jean Grey starts to go full Phoenix again. Magneto is good and then bad like he is in every movie, and Wolverine is somehow captured by Stryker even though the last movie ended with Mystique finding him. The main plot revolves around the OG mutant, Apocalypse. He has been woken up in the 80s to a much different world, one he quickly catches up on by tapping into a TV set. That's how learning works, kids. He wants to cleanse the Earth by destroying it. Those that survive the horrific destruction will be welcomed with open arms to this new hellscape of fire and brimstone, teeming with radiation poisoning. It's a sound plan. It's a good plan. In order to achieve this massive feat, he enlists the help of three very useless teammates and Magneto. Speaking of which, Eric has made a nice quaint life for himself. He had an honest job, a family, and a new identity. That is, until he saves a man's life with his abilities, causing the local officials to show up at his doorstep. Eric's daughter, Snow White, sends a flock of angry birds at them, and Butterfingers McGee accidentally shoots an arrow through both her and her mother. They evidently were made of paper mache, as that arrow didn't seem to be moving that fast. There was not a lot of pull on that string, but it just went right through them both. Eric's anger gets the best of him, which was really conveniently timed, as Apocalypse appeared at that very moment to bring him aboard. Meanwhile, Raven is going around the world putting together some sort of X-Men squad. Xavier Xavier's school is blown up, Stryker kidnaps some of the kids just so we can have a Wolverine scene, and eventually the two factions battle it out. Finally, Apocalypse is defeated, mostly thanks to Cyclops. I'm joking, he's still completely useless. Magneto, for the 20th time, comes to his senses and helps Jean Grey and the others throw down an epic fatality on the villain. The film caps with Mystique leading her new team of poorly dressed heroes to a sequel that everyone will hate. Speaking of getting all dressed up with nowhere to go, let's talk Wonder Woman 84's plot. As the title states, the film takes place in 1984. Why is this such a special date to call out? It's anyone's guess, as the plot doesn't really hinge on any particulars. Apocalypse also takes place in the early 80s, but outside of some fashion choices, an occasional pop culture reference, and the fact that none of these characters have aged a single day, it's more of a gimmick than anything else. 84 starts with a lengthy Themyscira Gladiators competition to teach the audience that cheating is never the right answer, and you can't always get what you want. Did this need to go on for a dozen or so minutes for us to get that point? No, of course not. In fact, I took a lot of that time thinking about why Diana was even allowed to compete. Her mother didn't want her training in the last film, but she's cool with her kid upstaging women who have been working at this moment their entire lives. Controversial stance here, but I'd argue Diana's been cheating since birth, considering the raw talents bestowed upon her by her father Zeus. We'll move on though. When Diana and her nerdy friend Barbara come into possession of a magic stone, they soon learn it has the ability to grant the user a single wish upon touch. Since Wonder Woman is dead inside without the accompaniment of a man she knew for all of a week, she wishes him back. He ends up taking over the body of some random guy, and only Diana can see him as Steve. Where did the original owner of the body go? What was that weekend like, I wonder? Do you think his family missed him? Did he have a family? Did he lose his job? Diana doesn't seem bothered by any of these questions. Instead, she takes him to art galleries, a museum where they steal a fully fueled jet and allow him to join her for extremely dangerous missions. It's also implied that they sleep together, so that's fun. When Wonder Woman isn't pining for Chris, she's going after Maxwell Lord. He's also made a wish on the Dreamstone to basically be turned into a genie. This Dreamstone works like a monkey paw. It takes something just as valuable as what it gives, much like marriage. Diana starts to lose her powers and Maxwell slowly loses his life. To reach a huge number of people at once, he learns there is a new super secret technology that allows users to touch people via particles emitted through satellites or something. I can't even pretend to understand what was happening at the end. Later, he allows Barbara to turn herself into a reject from the film Cats, even though she already used up her one wish previously. Wonder Woman also turns a jet invisible. It seems like a pretty useful ability she could maybe use 1 or 2 times down the road, but I don't think it's ever brought up again. It's never mentioned. The final act consists of her fighting Cheetah and then going up against her greatest adversary yet, Strong Winds. She finally overcomes the particle beam and gives a speech so powerful that everyone gives up their wishes. The stories are both bad. I'm giving this round a tie. Since the plot is lacking in both these films, to say the least, the powers should make up for it, right? Apocalypse has plenty of that. There's a cage match between Nightcrawler and Angel, an escape from Stryker's facility featuring Weapon X going on a murder spree, and plenty of mutant versus mutant fighting. And for the most part, the powers make sense. Cyclops shoots lasers from his eyes, Nightcrawler teleports, Magneto can manipulate metal, Angel gets drunk, etc. Apocalypse eludes me though. I don't understand what this character is at all. We see Apocalypse drop humans like flies without even blinking an eye. He can just download information by touching things, it seems, and he's really big into the sand stuff. That's like his thing. He plasters a dude into a wall like a cartoon character, he slices off heads, but then there's his unexplainable clothing designer skill. He can just make wardrobes and stylish tattoos. Everyone gets a new outfit and hairstyle, except for Psylocke, who, let's be honest, she kind of nailed it the first time around. He can also charge up other mutant abilities, making them super mutants. In the case of Angel, he replaces his wings with metal ones that shoot little blades. Watch out guys, Angel just went from a 1 to a 2 on the threat scale. This scale goes up to 1,000. Apocalypse has super speed too, I believe. His eyes catch up to Quicksilver after a couple moments, so I just can't fathom how he lost so handily. This dude seems far more threatening on paper than even Thanos, yet he commands none of the presence. I mentioned Quicksilver, who once more is the big highlight of the film. Saving the students from the exploding school feels like watching an entirely different movie. Far better one. Remember the fantastic action from the first Wonder Woman flick? Director Patty Jenkins doesn't seem to. Instead of the slick, high-energy fights with Diana brandishing a sword and shield, we get her with just the lasso of truth and a tiara. Later, she wears some golden armor she had stored away in the corner of her broom closet to spice things up a little. For the most part, it's a lot of swinging, throwing, punching, and running in front of green screens. She seems to have an invisible touch now, Phil Collins. A short-lived display of power that, as previously stated, will never be used again. Sticking to the music theme, she rides the lightning too, right after learning how to fly. Super strength, speed, seemingly impervious skin, and a smile that melts most men in the picture isn't enough for Diana. She needs the power of love, and only Steve can provide that. Well, he and Huey Lewis in the News. I'm done with these now. Barbara gets some of the same powers as Wonder Woman, plus fur, which will help keep her warm in those harsh winter months. Smart thinking. Steve Trevor isn't a superhero, although his piloting skills are second to none. The jump from a World War I plane to a modern jet to me seems astronomical. It took him all of 5 seconds to get comfortable with it. Dude is a pro. But since variety is the spice of life, X-Men takes the win here. The biggest mystery to me is that both of these movies were directed by people who previously put out fantastic installments. Bryan Singer directed most of the good X-Men films before crapping out Apocalypse. It looks cheap compared to the previous entries. The costumes look like something you could buy at one of those pop-up stores come Halloween. Most of it is just chaotic CG noise that bombards the screen. There are definitely some breakout moments and some solid musical choices, but it all just feels silly this time around. Jennifer Lawrence clearly didn't want to sit for the hours of makeup daily, which is probably a good thing sadly, considering what the final product ended up looking like. The opening act is cool, mainly because it takes place in Egypt, which is a nice change of pace from the traditional city battles. Almost all of these criticisms can be applied to Wonder Woman 84. Diana looks out of place in her own picture. In the previous flick, Jenkins did a great job making her feel like she was part of the time period. I can see what she was going for with the brighter look, just didn't work. The pacing is noticeably weaker, with a full hour going by at one point before the next set piece hits. The biggest criticism I have though is the camera work. There were a handful of moments where it felt like they used the C unit for these shots. Bizarre camera placement that sits on a poorly framed up Diana. Both have a few slick moments, but they're equally a messy production. I'm calling another tie here.
Well, shit, Diana.
In the war for disappointment, one reigns supreme. Wonder Woman 1984 is a chore to sit through, with a whole lot of shenanigans taking place. Age of Apocalypse is a massive step down from the previous entry too, but at least it doesn't feel like it's 12 hours long. Now it's your turn to chime in. Toss a like on the video if you had some fun, and I'll see you next week on another Reel Rivalries. Seriously though, the makeup on Mystique this time around was horrific. I could spend hours on it. I could talk about it until I'm blue in the face. Yeah, I'll show myself up. Thanks for watching The Rivalry. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit that like button and comment with your episode winner. If you're a fan of movie debates, feel free to subscribe to ScreenRant for more Reel Rivalries and much, much more.